Yes or no?
No.
Okay. All right, so now the next question, and Mike, you'll respond first to this. And actually, we're going to go backwards on that. Kevin, since you didn't have a rebuttal on the last one, we'll go Kevin first. Discuss your response to the questions I just asked and/or offer other alternatives for improving our school systems.
Well, I think one thing you have to do is when you're looking at completely eliminating school property taxes, well, right now, that's one of the flaws, and that's one of the reasons that I co-sponsored House Bill 1275 is to have some standing. You need a constitutional convention to have complete school property tax reduction. So the bill is fundamentally flawed in that regard. But you also have to make sure that you have an alternative to fund education. Earlier, when we were talking about the sales tax, we were talking about House Bill 1275. My opponent said that he wasn't in favor of ever increasing the personal income tax, but to raise $17.5 billion, you'd have to do that. The restructuring, and there are different plans. The House Bill 1966, it's offered by Representative Tim Sipe. 1965, Representative Tim Sipe. That calls for a modernization of the sales tax here in Pennsylvania. And it hasn't been revisited since 1971. In 1991, it was done briefly, but everything that the exclusions that were rolled back there, it didn't last long, and they were put back in play. So really, we haven't had a modernization of the sales tax since 1971, and we've changed a lot over the past 50 years. So that's an option that we have to look at. But even in modernizing the structure of the sales tax and getting rid of some of the exclusions within the sales tax here in Pennsylvania, that only accounts for about $3.5 billion. But at least, that's enough to fully fund the homestead exemption for every property owner here in Pennsylvania on their primary property. So that's a 50% reduction, and that's based on the median household value within a given school district. So it's not the same in every school district, but it's a heck of a start.
Thank you. Mike, the same question to you.
Funding for education, school enrollments are down by almost 30,000 students. We've increased teacher staff by about 33,000, and K through 12 funding has increased 43%. But the National Assessment Educational Progress exams have decreased or stayed stagnant. So clearly throwing more money at the education system is wrong. That's why I am for the elimination of school property tax. That way we can have the school districts concentrate on education and not worry about funding. Education is where the key process is lacking right now, that we have to focus on the education. You talk about, once again, the raising the personal income tax to raise this money for education. Never did I ever say that, and that's something you keep throwing in here. But by eliminating the school property tax and expanding the sales tax, you will generate more money for the schools to have. They stay at their actual rate per student at every school level, every school district. So to say that funding is going to be decreased and the taxpayers are going to have to pay for it, I think is just, it's not accurate. That's where I stand on that issue.
Thank you. Kevin, you have a minute to rebut if you so choose.
Well, House Bill 1275 requires, because as I stated, it's for primary residences, secondary residences, your vacation homes, which a lot of people that I represent here in the 113th district, they don't have those type of luxuries. They're concerned about their primary homes, their primary school property taxes. And you have to fund it. You just can't say, we want this to be utopia. No one has to pay for school property taxes anymore. We have to work on a solution, but at the same time we're working on a solution, we have to be able to provide alternatives. And by modernizing the sales tax here in Pennsylvania, that's an acceptable alternative, because you have to permanently fill that gap, and you have to make sure there's a steady revenue stream coming in every year to meet those obligations. So I think that's critical. And House Bill 1275, the reason I keep bringing up the personal income tax is because right inside the body of the legislation, it indicates that it would require a significant increase in the personal income tax.
Thank you.
Can I address that? Okay.
If you so choose in the next question, but we're going to move
All right.
on. We're going to stay with the topic of education, but this time address higher education. And as I stated in the beginning, we have some members of the University of Scranton's Pre-Law Society in the room, and this question comes directly from them, so I'm going to ask you to make sure that you address your response to them. And because we are running short on time, there will be no rebuttal on this one. The question first to Mike is, college students today face large amounts of debt and an entry into a very dull job market. How serious do you think this problem is, and what solutions do you propose for lifting the burden that graduating students face?
I agree with them. It is it's a bleak atmosphere out there for the job outlook, and that's because of our corporate net income tax rate of 9.9%. Who wants to come to a Commonwealth where we have the highest flat tax rate in the country? Who wants to do that? No one wants to come here for that. I believe we have to lower the corporate net income tax rate so we can attract businesses, so we can get our highly educated students into these high salary jobs. We have very educated, very bright, intelligent students here in the northeastern Pennsylvania that will stay here locally and fill these jobs. But they're not coming because of that tax rate. But I also believe that our higher institutions should look within themselves to start cutting back on a little, because the state has been funding colleges with funding for tuition. But every year, tuition seems to keep coming up. I believe if we have to cut back at our homes, if we have to cut back in Harrisburg, I do believe we have to cut back in colleges and find out what items need to be cut back so tuition can be cut back and make it eligible for all students to have an education here and at a level that's affordable for everybody.
Kevin?
Well, this problem has been a problem for decades. And one of the biggest problems that you face, obviously, you've made the commitment to education, you've made a significant financial investment, you probably have considerable amount of debt in loans, and your parents are probably helping out as much as possible. But I have 4 children myself. My daughter, Casey's 13, the boys are 10, 7, and 5. I'm going to have to face the reality of the cost of higher education real soon. But what we have to do is we have to incentivize companies through tax credits to hire Pennsylvanians. So when you're a qualified, educated young man or young woman here in the Commonwealth, there's an incentive for companies to hire you. We also have to make sure that we maintain our commitment to grants and loan programs. Not only to make sure that the loans are available to you, because it's very difficult in this time for you to get money, but to make sure it's at a low enough interest rate so that when you are starting out, you'll be able to pay it back. And grants on the federal level and on the state level, I think should be increased, because we have an abundance of intelligence here within the United States. What our problem is, we face a situation where those that are qualified, only due to financial resource problems, because they just don't have the money, they don't have that education available to them. So any type of loan forgiveness that we can do with regards to volunteering and working hours while you're at school and after you graduate here locally, I think we should be doing. And I think we have to make sure that we help incentivize corporations here in Pennsylvania to hire Pennsylvania students.